Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of The Squibbler Show. My name is Tejas, and today we're going to be talking about Constance Pickering, the Calamity, Gareth Greengrass, and more. Here with me today to talk about Wizards Unite's storyline is one of the most intense conspiracy theorists out there. Please join me in welcoming Lynette from WizardPhD. Hi Lynette, what's up?
Hey Tejas, what's going on? How are
I'm good, I'm
you?
good. I'm good. How are you?
Pretty well, just, going day by day. I'm Professor Lynette. I am in charge of Wizard PhD. I'm a professor in real life and also in the game Harry Potter Wizards Unite. So the channel is kind of goofy, but also academic intense. I go into rabbit holes. I also kind of dabble in conspiracy theories with the game, but in general, I really enjoy um, embracing my Ravenclaw professor self, where I deep dive into Harry Potter and try to make connections and have fun with people along the way.
Well, speaking of your conspiracy theories, that's exactly why I have you as a guest today, because I wanted to talk a little bit more about Wizards Unite's storyline. And this is my personal opinion. Over the last 1 year since Wizards Unite launched, there have been there's not been that much progress in the storyline. And this is my frank opinion. I don't like the storyline that's going on right now. What is your stance on this? Like, what do you think about the last 1 year of Wizards Unite's storyline?
In general, the storyline is that there's this calamity, and we are witches and wizards called to join this SOS task force to contain it. So the calamity has traces of magic all over the world. They tend to be memories, but sometimes they're objects, and our job is to basically clean that up. And so our task force is headed by this girl who might not be a girl named Constance Pickering. And she works under Hermione Granger in the ministry. And then we see some characters leading us along the way. The idea behind the Calamity is they think that this guy named Grim Folly started it. And in part of their case against him is that he was desperate to find his missing wife, Penelope Folly, who happens to be part of this London Five, who mysteriously disappeared and nobody knows where they are. So there's kind of two mysteries happening here. One is this calamity. What is it? How did it get started? How did we get to this point? And the other is this related possible connection to five witches and wizards who went missing called the London Five. So that's like the general, like that's what we were introduced at a year ago. Like that's the concept of it. And I will agree with you that the story has not progressed much. 1 year later, basically what we've come to learn, we've come to investigate the calamity in different ways. And so part of it is like the calamity seems to be affected or impacted. It kind of is dynamic. It isn't just this static thing. It seems to be taking people's memories. So if we see a memory of Harry Potter, that memory is literally taken from him until it's returned. And then we also explosively found out that supposedly Grim Folly has been in prison for a year. That's what he told Harry Potter and Ron Weasley and now Hermione Granger. So there's a lot of fragmented pieces all over. And so that's kind of the structure of this mystery. But the general story hasn't really progressed. So we've had different mystery files where we learn a little bit about Grim Folly, his background, his past, a little bit about Penelope. But I would say I actually had to go look, and people reminded me that we went through those mystery dialogues, the SOS assignments, in like a month. So like everything that we're getting thus far are just crumbs from these special brilliant events, which we also don't quite understand, the brilliant versus the regular traces. So that's kind of the general storyline. And I mean, I do agree. I go in ebbs and flows. Sometimes I'm like really into it, and other times I'm just like, oh my gosh, why do I even care? And so I understand the critiques and frustration of like, okay, so are we supposed to be interested in this or not? That's kind of how it feels.
Yeah, like all the things that you mentioned, like the basic storyline of Wizards Unite, it's all very interesting. It sounds like the idea of it is very like, oh, okay, this guy's missing or imprisoned, and these 5 people have whatever, London 5.
Mm-hmm.
Initially, yes, it was very exciting. And like you said, within the first 1 month, we finished all the SOS task assignments, the 15 assignments or whatever it was.
Mm-hmm.
But that was it. It was just 1 month. So how is it that you have been still like so into the whole storyline of Wizards Unite? Because I gave up on it ages ago. Like,
Mm-hmm.
sure, a part of me still cares about it to a certain extent, but most of the time I'm just playing Wizards Unite for the fun of it, not because I care about the storyline anymore. So
Yeah.
what keeps you going in terms of all these conspiracy theories?
I would be lying if I said that I didn't question, like, should I just give this up and like not care about it so much. I've had moments where I'm like, this doesn't seem worth it. So I can even go back to the WooTubers with those little teaser trailers. So there's the one with the broomsticks, and like we're all trying to, like, I literally was searching Google Maps in Australia trying to find this road that probably didn't even exist, or at least was digitally altered, so I wouldn't find the exact scene. So I don't know. I'm just kind of like, I really like mysteries. I like puzzles. Puzzle games are probably my most favorite. So like for people who have a Nintendo Switch and play Breath of the Wild, like those little puzzle chambers in there, that's like my favorite part of the game, less so the combat type stuff. So personally, I like the mysteries and puzzles, but, I mean, it took me a while because I really was surprised that people weren't more into the storyline, but the more that I interacted with people and saw like how much joy like wizarding challenges, fortresses bring people, like because I enjoy those too, the more that I recognized, hey, like you don't need to like every aspect of this game. So comments about people not caring about Grim Folly, for example, even though it kind of in the inside hurts me because I'm like, that Grim, it's fine. Like people like whatever they like about the game, and that's I think that that's really good. But in terms of like how do I stay interested, it ebbs and flows. So sometimes it's really difficult. We don't get enough from the dialogue bits itself. It's always like little teasers or a crumb or kind of like, I wonder what this could mean, which that kind of dialogue kind of annoys me, but that's fine. So what I do with that though is I use it as a launching point into a creative playground. So whether that be like I go back to source material, I go back and try to find instances of like, what was Kingsley's deal like in the books, and like what was that dynamic, like going back to Harry Potter, the text specifically, to kind of go into the canon, go onto the forums, reading like countless interviews with J.K. Rowling from like years ago. And so that sort of investigation is kind of fun for me. Because I mean, even though I am a Harry Potter fan, I don't know everything. I'm not an encyclopedia. And so it's really fun to see, and also to see people's discussions, like the number of Reddit threads that I've seen where people are asking these very like deep questions that I've never asked before is really interesting. And then the other piece that I do with the storyline is this thing called the Underground, which I'm like, so this crazy board behind me with those numbers. So I use it as kind of like, hey, well, there were coded messages in those like early SOS assignments. And so this is something we can play around with as well, as people who are super fans of the game. And so the Underground is kind of like this secret society where we kind of play around and we're trying to investigate. And so, I mean, honestly, I don't really care about the SOS task force. It can burn to the ground. That's fine. So if you want a rebellious little outlet, the Underground might be for you, or it could just be for people who really want to talk Harry Potter. So the only way that I can really stay invested in the storyline at the pace that we're at, the time scale is just like not. It's so slow, is to just create things and play around, even though it can be frustrating. So that's how I deal with it.
Okay, I get that. Of all your theories, like you mentioned, the stuff that's behind you and whatever's happening in the underground, of all those things, what would you say is your, at the moment, currently, what's your biggest conspiracy theory?
Gosh, it's so hard because I guess there's two main people, and then Grimm is kind of like an after effect. But the two main people that I have my eye on, one is becoming more common, Constance Pickering. She is gaining, fans of the Connie Suss Club. Like, her dialogue pieces always give us something that we're like, wait a second, what's going on with you? Who are you really? And especially because she's a brand new character.
Yep.
We don't know anything about her. We don't really know anything about her family except for the little bits that she's been giving us over time. So and the fact that she has a position of power in this SOS task force and like wanted to be in the ministry working for Hermione, like that to me, I'm just like, all right, I'm cautious around you. So there's something off about Constance. And I've had crazy, wild theories where it's like she's artificial intelligence, machine learning. She's not a person. And then other people are like, she's the Calamity herself, or she is actually someone in disguise. So there's all sorts of like I can't pin down a particular theory with Constance. I just know that something is going off on my radar. The big theory that I have, the reason why I don't really I talk about it in joke. So like a lot of people who watch WizardPhD know GG, and that's also on my wall back here. GG is Gareth Greengrass, and he is someone who I've had it out for since the beginning. Before the game launched and we got that little first look and people mentioned the name Gareth Greengrass, and I looked up the name Greengrass and was like, family is pureblood, Sacred 28, related to Astoria Greengrass. There's something here that seems more directly connected to the wizarding world in terms of families and dynamics. So, and he also has a notable role in the ministry. He seems to be connected to Grimfolly, Penelope, all these people. He's one of the people who talks to us. So I'm like looking in the ministry and trying to figure out, there's no way that everything was fine and then all of a sudden, bam, there's this like massive calamity. And so there seems to be really people who are in notable positions of power that could be involved. And so my big theory with Gareth Greengrass, and I don't have any evidence for it, but is that he is actually behind this or in charge of this or part of this larger calamity thing, and could honestly be part of the London 5 disappearance based on how weird he is about like the dialogue pieces with trying to shut down the investigation. So biggest theory, like I have big theories that I feel a lot of feelings towards, but I don't really have anything concrete to be like, yes, this is how I feel. But those are the two people I would say to look out for.
Okay, interesting. Would you say that that one guy who keeps appearing in different traces, do you think he's related to anyone?
Tony! Yeah. Okay, so he's called Tony because he looks like Tony Stark, but
Okay.
it's like, we don't know his name. I don't know what his deal is. I don't know. Is he supposed to be a memory? Is he supposed to be a real person? Nobody seems to comment on him. Like, none of our people are like, oh, hey, there's so-and-so. So I have no idea who he is, but I do think that he could be, I don't know. That guy is definitely a mystery. So there's a laundry list of potential, like, who could this guy be? But I really don't know. He's going to come up later. There's no way that they'll just animate him over and over for him not to be part of this story eventually.
True. Recently, there was this article that popped up on Wizards Unite Hub. I'm sure you must have read it. The title goes, "The Calamity Must Die." It was a very interesting and a very clickbaity title, but it wasn't clickbait, obviously, because when I read it, I was like, wow, this is interesting. So I'll leave a link to this in the description for those of you who haven't watched it. But Lynette, what do you think about this Calamity Must Die?
Yeah, I've read it multiple times. The points that were raised in that article are for sure valid because there was a moment, I don't remember exactly when this happened, but there was a moment early on in the game launch where I was like, uh-oh, this is all there is. And so I had this moment of panic because I was like, this doesn't feel enough to me. And so this feeling that Professor S is talking about of like, there's something that's missing and I can't put my finger on it. So props to him for being able to articulate it and like come up with alternatives for addressing the feeling that it feels a little off. And I think that people also have that sense. And I think another piece to this article is that if you've played Pokemon Go and you really love Pokemon Go, then this article probably makes a lot of sense of like the kinds of differences that he's talking about the immersiveness and having this RPGness where you are a Pokemon trainer and that's like the core drive. I think a challenge for Wizards Unite though is that Harry Potter is not really a game. It's not like Pokemon is a whole franchise and it's based on a game. Harry Potter is not. And so Harry Potter being based in books, storytelling, you know, that sort of media, it makes sense that it would be a mystery. You've played Hogwarts Mystery, you know, so there's like these elements that you're like, all right, Harry Potter books also have mysterious elements to it where you're trying to figure stuff out. That makes sense. But in terms of a game, I feel like I don't mind the Calamity as a structure that much. And I've actually had extensive conversations to try to figure out like what is it that like makes it like why would they go with something like the Calamity? And so I think the comment about like trying to recreate these memories or these scenes of people and places that we've appreciated, like you're not going to see Dumbledore walking around the wizarding world. He's dead, you know? So like to bring those characters back in memory form and to have like you don't just get one Harry Potter, you get multiple Harry Potters, like a young Harry Potter, like a Harry Potter doing Quidditch things, and present day Harry Potter for some reason. And so in order to be able to get because it's actually a very long time frame. We're going all the way back 100 years if you're going to count the Circus Arcanus Brilliant event. That's 100 years back in the 1920s all the way through 2020. That's 100 years of like that like actually foregrounds the mystery part of it of like why memories, why these memories, why is there certain attention. But in terms of like the critique of it and like how it feels, I completely understand that. Like I know that because I honestly I get tired of the game, and I don't know if there's a game that can exist or a mechanic that can exist. So even if we went with, oh, we're just SOS Task Force cleaning up things, I feel like I would probably still get tired of that. I don't know. It's really story driven to me, also in the sense of why would you need the entire global force of witches and wizards to come out and protect the statute of secrecy? You would need something massive, something that's catastrophic. And so I think that's probably where they came up with this Calamity idea. But as I mentioned like very briefly before, I think that the time scale is like what makes this game so frustrating, is that a lot of Harry Potter fans who are also gamers really want that immersive, like how many times have people asked for an MMORPG? Like we want to be in the world, we want to be exploring, and this game I don't think can provide that, but it is like a step, like it's, if I think about the gaming landscape, there's like steps towards whatever comes in the future. And so this is just one piece of it. The Calamity, like I said, doesn't bother me as much, but I do understand, like, because it does feel like at a certain point you're like, all right, what else can I should just set this down and walk away. So there's this tension there. So unless they really integrate the storyline and mystery into the gameplay, which might turn some people off, but it might excite people or people who weren't excited about the storyline before. So I think that they're close on certain things, but I think that it just falls short a little bit. So hopefully in the second year, they really amp whatever it is that they're trying to capitalize off of with this Calamity and connecting it with things that might be interesting.
One thing that was mentioned in this article was the fact that it doesn't make sense to see Dumbledore struggling with one Inferi, for example, or, you know, Kingsley is struggling to fight off against a Dementor, or that Flitwick is running around in circles because a chicken is chasing him when his wand is right there.
Like, just pick up the wand!
Yeah.
That makes less sense as compared to something like maybe a Muggle who, you know, happens to walk into a Dementor, and now the Dementor is sucking into this Muggle's soul, and it's our job to protect this Muggle. Realistically, yeah, that does make more sense than Kingsley or Dumbledore and all these powerful characters struggling to do simple magic.
Yeah. So I actually go back and forth on this because so early on during all the panels, they would tell us over and over, everything is on purpose, everything is intentional. And so that like really sets my little brain off being like, well, what's going on here? Like, why can't they break out and grab their wand? Why do they drop their wands? Moody is the only one who really seems to have his wand when you have this mysterious wizard who's also has his wand. And so I don't know. So this is like where I honestly go back and forth is like, is this really meaningful and part of the storyline, or is this convenient to create this like gameplay mechanic? And I don't know the answer to that. Like, I still hold out hope that it is connected to the storyline, and that's maybe part of the mystery. But I agree with that critique. Like, there are times when I'm like, dude, like, come on, are you a wizard or not? You know? So like, I totally understand that, and I don't know. We'll see. I guess you can ask me again in another year to see if I'm like, all right, I'm done with this or not. But definitely, I think there are valid points. So I would recommend people to explore the article and to read, because it clearly is like well thought out. It isn't just a rant. It's like there are points that are made that I think are worth talking about.
Okay. So let's assume for a moment that maybe a couple years down the road, Niantic decides, okay, this Calamity storyline we have stretched it out too much. We can't go beyond this. The Calamity must end.
Yeah.
What's next for Wizards Unite? Do you think they'll come up with a new story, or it's just, okay, just stuff is still popping up somehow?
I have no idea. I mean, this is honestly my question about Hogwarts Mystery. Like, when I'm done with year 7, is it like, what happens? Are we just done with it? Yeah, so like, this is kind of like why I had a moment, because I was like, it feels like the two options are, we can't do anything about the Calamity, it's never going to end, or it's going to end, the game is over. And those don't sound like appealing options to me. Like, I understand it. So in the terms of like, if we're going to do somewhat parallels, so we have points of interest, we have landmarks, so we have like inns, greenhouses, the towers, fortresses, and so those are like kind of the static points, and then we have the things that pop up in the world. And so like you would still need those things to pop up for it to be of the structure of Niantic games, where you're going out and exploring and doing things, interacting with those. So honestly, I don't know if the Calamity is going to end. If it does, then I don't know, possibly we could do things that are more dueling combat based. And so I know that they didn't want Wizards Unite to be a team based thing. And at first I was like really excited about that. I was like, that's really cool. Like, we're all working together. But lots of things are team based. And I feel like I also go back and forth on this opinion. So like, if we had something where it's like, okay, now we are all battling people, it could be PvP based, where like we have to choose a side, like kind of like Ingress-ish, but not exactly the same, but like kind of like you're choosing one side or the other, kind of like, should we keep the statute of secrecy? Should we abolish the statute of secrecy? Those are the kinds of things that I'm interested in. And then we're just like, you know, claiming little things or whatever. But honestly, I don't see it ending, and I don't know what's next. If it does, I guess it could be more of like the mystery, but that like there still needs to be something that incentivizes you going out to explore. And so the Calamity seems to be that fixed thing that is the catalyst for that. So I don't know. Do you have any thoughts about it? Do you think that if the Calamity is going to end, there's something cool?
I mean, they
I'm
could
pretty
come up with
pessimistic.
another storyline, or like you mentioned, we could be like, do we choose to save the statute of secrecy or like keep it secret? That kind of also calls back to what we're seeing in the Fantastic Beasts movies, where Grindelwald is all about exposing the wizarding world, and the rest of them are like, no, we should keep it a secret and all that. So sure, that's a very good parallel to have, but I'm not sure if that can be sustained again, because if that is a story, then that story will have to end as well eventually. So then another thing will pop up. You mentioned Ingress. Let's talk about, so Ingress has a storyline of its own, and Niantic developed that storyline into a TV series, an animated TV series. And Wizards Unite also has a storyline. So do you think maybe we could see a movie adaptation or a TV show adaptation of the Calamity.
Okay, so you know that trailer where there was like, it gave us the release date. It was like coming June 21st. It was that day they launched it, and it had those 3 people, witches and wizards. And it starts off with the girl, and she has like a crazy board, and she's just like putting together the things. I was so hopeful that they would turn that into, you have a YouTube channel, you have social media, you can integrate like your promotion, your marketing into this. Like, we're following these 3 characters. They're just like us. They're just people that happen to be spotlighted of like, this is their journey containing the Calamity. I think there's so much potential there, but the pessimistic side of me is like, I don't know if they'll invest in that. But I mean, honestly, with Ingress is very small as well, and they have this whole production, and Ingress is very active. Like I subscribe to their YouTube channel, and so they have bursts of like little clips and stuff, and so there are main characters that you follow throughout there. So I guess I'm trying to like give myself a little bit more hope. Just because they didn't do it in year 1 doesn't mean that they can't start doing it, right? I think it would be really cool, and I think that people might be interested in that sort of thing. I just don't know in terms of like the larger scope of like budgeting and like prioritization for the brand, if that is something that they would pursue. But I would totally be into that. I think other people would be into that. And you have a storyline that is like, it's something that seems to be carrying forward. Yeah, it's like operating, you have like a 10-year like plan, I guess, or something. You're only getting like little fragments here and there. But I think that if they started doing this in year 2, even if it's like short little clips, YouTube videos, that it would generate more hype again for, I don't know, possibly, maybe not, but possibly for this story element, or at least trying to figure out like what's happening here, or at least being invested in the story of Wizards Unite.
It reminds me of the time when like when all these teasers were coming out, and like you mentioned the main trailer, and at the very end, if you remember, we saw Harry's glasses on the ground. That was
it always like gives me chills. I'm just like,
yeah.
I always tear up at the end of that video, especially when she like, because it's like a little arc, right? She kind of isn't sure, she doesn't think she can do it, and then she's just like expecto patronum, and I'm just like, bawling. I would love to follow them, man.
I think that would be a very, I would be down to see if Niantic makes like a movie adaptation or a TV show adaptation. So, Niantic, if you're watching, and YouTubers are all here ready to contribute. We would love to be behind the scenes. So, Lynette, thank you so much for answering all of these questions regarding the storyline of Wizards Unite. Hopefully, we see things pick up in the second year and going forward. Let's see whether or not the Calamity ends. Remains to be seen, but let's see what happens. Before you go, it's time now for the Fiendfyre segment. Okay, question 1. What was Rita Skeeter's animagus form?
Oh, she was a little bug.
Okay, but what bug was she?
A bug. A beetle.
Yes,
no.
Correct.
Yes, okay. Because it's like the play on bug. Okay, sorry, go. Ready.
How was Bathilda Bagshot related to Grindelwald?
I don't remember. I don't remember.
She was his great aunt. So he was her great nephew. Yeah.
Great nephew.
All right, third question. You still can win this. Xenophilius Lovegood had a Eurumpent horn in his house, which he mistook for something else. What was that something else?
Oh my gosh, I'm gonna fail this, and everyone's gonna be like, okay, unsubscribe to WizardPhD. I don't know.
It's a Crumplehorn Snorkag.
Yeah, still like me.
All right, Lynette, thank you so much for taking the time to answer these questions and for being such a great sport. So thank you, and yeah, it's nice having you.
Thank you.
See you.
Bye.
Thank you so much for watching. Please show your love to Lynette by subscribing to her YouTube channel, which will be linked in the description box down below. I'll see you next week for another episode of The Squibbler Show. Till then, stay safe and goodbye.